Hey, topic is math and history, and we're going to be understanding the learning areas of a merit badge. So what we're going to be learning today is we're going to learn the area of a circle, and we're also going to understand how it applies to real life, and we're going to actually play it. So we're actually going to do it in real life. So here is what we're going to do. Last week, there were merit badges that I earned over a summer camp. And what we're going to do is we're going to put those badges on this sash right here using something that's called badge magic. It's basically a piece of paper that acts like a sticker. And what it does is, it does this. So technically, you don't actually have to sew it on there, but there is one problem. With these merit badges, we want to know how much of this, whatever this is called. And we want to also know how much does it take on this entire thing to put a single badge on here. That is why we're going to learn about the area of a circle. Okay, so let's actually select one. We have wood carving, orienteering, citizenization, communications, camping, cooking, personal management, and finally, Native American cultures. Let's do personal management first, because that one has a lot of math in it. And when you do a lot of money, you have a lot of cha-ching, cha-ching. And you have to do a lot of math in this one. So let's actually do this one. The problem is, how are we going to get it on here? And what is the area of it? Well, merit badges are in the shape of a circle, right? So, there is a formula that we're going to follow to solve it. The formula is, the area of a circle is going to equal pi r squared. Pi is a symbol that represents a number. The radius is going to be something that can be measured on a circle. And the squared part is telling you why it's squared. So here we go. Let's start. Let's start with understanding what pi is. So if you ever wondered what pi is an irrational number that's equal to 3.14 or 3.114. 3.14. Many people have tried to memorize almost every digit of pi. The thing is, pi is a never-ending number. And not only that, it's an irrational number.
Who knew this guy, 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 who knew...
The reason why mathematicians use 3.14, or how they got to it, is basically another formula for a circle. But this time, it's the circumference. The circumference is going to be pi times the diameter. With the circumference, you are measuring what the perimeter of the circle is, or what the circumference of the circle is. Do you see the white lining of the merit badge? That is indicating that it's eagle required. Not only that, it's also indicating the circumference of the circle. Here's a catch. If you ever did a science experiment, or if you did like an experiment where you would always do the diameter divided by the circumference, if you ever tried to do that, you would always get a number that is close to or rounded up to 3.14. So basically, if we measured the diameter, if we did that, and we also did the circumference, we measured the circumference, we would get a number that's close to 3.14. So that is why we have pi right there. Then let's learn about the radius. The radius is something that can be measurable within a circle, because let's imagine you have a circle right here. The radius is going to be exactly half of the circle. So basically, it goes from the middle of the circle all the way to the end of the circle. If you ever want to measure the diameter, that is measuring from that side of the circle to that side of the circle. So it's touching both ends of the circle. The radius is always going to be measured as half of the diameter. So if you have a measurement, let's say the diameter is 12 units, then to get pi radius squared, that is telling you that the radius is going to be exactly half of the diameter. So you have to put 6 units instead into the formula. This is an example of the radius, how you can always have it as half of a circle, and how you can swing it around a bit.
Fight!
That is definitely an example of the radius, but in motion. The last thing to learn about is the number 2 as a square. But why the square? Well, if you ever measure the area of a square, that is saying that it's equal parts. So 8 times 8 is going to be 64. But since it's a 2D shape, we're going to say 64 units squared because it's a 2D shape. A circle is definitely a 2D shape. So that's why we use the number 2 as an exponent or squared. And that is how we can understand the formula pi r squared. Well, let's actually do the math. Let's measure the radius. So, let's measure the diameter to be accurate. If you measure the radius, it's hard to accurately measure the middle. So it seems like the merit badge is 3.75 centimeters in diameter. So we're going to do 3.75. But the problem is that's the diameter. We want the radius. So what we're going to do is slice it in half. So when you slice 3.75 in half, you're going to get 1.875 as the radius in centimeters. Now we have all the parts to put that information into the formula. We only needed to measure one thing. That was the radius of this. But since we want to be very accurate, we want it to measure the diameter, because we don't know exactly the middle of the merit badge. So remember, the area of a circle is pi. We're going to insert our dimensions. 1.875 centimeters. And last but not least, we have to square it. Let's start the math. So the first thing you might be thinking of is we have to multiply pi, multiply that by 1.875. If you do this step, it's actually going to make the answer incorrect, and it's actually going to make it inaccurate. The reason why is we have a square there. And when we have an exponent, we will do order of operations. Remember, order of operations is you have to do your groupings first, then your exponents, then your multiply, divide, then add, subtract. Since exponents is the step you want to take before multiplying, you have to do 1.875 times itself 2 times. So when you use the order of operations and you try to use that squared, when you do 1.875 centimeters squared, you're going to get an answer of 3.51 centimeters. The last step we need to do is multiply by pi, or 3.14, to make it more easier to calculate. When you do this and when you do that, you multiply together, you get an answer as, we're gonna get 11.02 centimeters squared. So technically, it means that the personal management merit badge takes up 11.02 centimeters squared up on here to put on the sash. Not only that, we'll also need 11.02 centimeters squared of this kind of paper that you cut. Put it on the back of this merit badge and stick it on the sash. Let's actually do it. So we're gonna put this thingy on here and we're gonna trace it with a pen so we can cut it. Okay, it is traced. Now we can actually cut it. So we traced it around the circumference. Okay, so we cut it out. The next step we need to do is, you see how there's an inside right here? There is something that acts like a sticker that you can put on the back of here and stick it on there. Let's actually do it. Okay, the final step with this is we turn it around and we stick it onto the sash. And we have mission accomplished. So we have finally put the personal management merit badge on this sash successfully. And we also did that by measuring the area of a circle and measuring how much of this magic badge, whatever it's called, kind of piece of paper we need. And that concludes the video. I hope this video has helped you learn about the area of a circle. And if you are a scout if you are a Boy Scout or Girl Scout or any kind of scout and you needed help with putting your stuff on your sash, well then, you can calculate the area and use whatever this is. Like and subscribe!
Picking up trash sure is hard work. Uh-oh.